in the Arizona Cardinals taking on Josh Dobbs in Arizona. What happened? What's been going on with the Bengals? Well, Jamar Chase has been like, I'm always open. There was no reason for us to get blown out versus the Titans, so please just give me the ball. Joe Burrow's been banged up. We don't know if it's been Joe Burrow or if it's been that offense or if it's just the Bengals' September woes in general, but Jamar Chase was always open in this game. He had 15 catches. He was almost had 200 yards. I believe he had 183, 3 touchdowns in this game, basically having a game good enough to make up for the past 2 weeks for fantasy owners. And then Jamar Chase goes absolutely ballistic. Without T. Higgins there, their offense looked a lot more focused in on getting Jamar Chase involved and getting him the ball. And then Joe Burrow, he had some balls where he was able to actually get the deep ball downfield. He was accurate in this game. He was a lot more decisive. His mobility in the pocket was a lot better than it had been in the first month of the season. So it looked like really him getting those reps after missing training camp and then just the first month of the year being very hit or miss, where their defense had to carry them in a lot of games, and then you get the win versus the Rams. Let's just get there 1-3, and now you're sitting at 2-3, and you're looking up. The Steelers are there at 3-2, and you're only a game back from the top of your division in the AFC North. So is everything right in Cincinnati? Not yet. They need to continue to improve and get better, but they did beat the Cardinals. And if you use Dallas Cowboys logic, they were the favorite in week 3, but they lost to the Cardinals, and then the Bengals went out there and beat them. So that would mean that the Bengals are pretty good, right?
Right. I mean, this is the first game this year where the Bengals have looked like themselves. Jamar Chase lit up the scoreboard, doing what only maybe 4 or 5 wide receivers can do, which is take over the game, something that maybe a Tyreek Hill or a Justin Jefferson and Deebo Samuel can do to that level. Great game by Jamar Chase. And then for Joe Burrow, finally looks like he's got his mobility back, had a great throw to Jamar Chase, leading with anticipation. Great play for them. Their defense doing the right things. This is a game that you should have against the Cardinals. This is the first game where a team beat the Cardinals the way they probably should have.
Yeah.
Where Josh Dobbs was probably brought down to earth a little bit compared to some other games. And this is a great win for them. I think this brings them back into the conversation for that division, especially with the Browns being the Browns, the Ravens, that whatever performance that was against the Steelers, and the Steelers in Guantanamo Bay level offense. So they're back in the mix, and it's amazing what 1 week can do. Last week we were burying them, we were writing their gravestone, and now they're back after 1 week. They're back in the mix. How can they build upon the success of this game? I think they should be back in the mix and building upon this, but great win for the Bengals.
Yeah, and for the Bengals, I wasn't necessarily burying them last week or writing on their gravestone. However, I was like, for a team that has as much continuity as you think the Bengals would have, this is your third run where you're running it back, expecting to get to the Super Bowl. This is the only team that has been able to compete and beat the Chiefs in a playoff game so far and consistently in the regular season. So Joe Burrow is the only one besides Tom Brady that has been able to give Patrick Mahomes trouble in the playoffs. So I was like, this is a team where it's like they should be better early on the season. And if Joe Burrow is really this unhealthy, then you shouldn't be playing. Well, they heard all of that. They heard all the complaints with Jamar Chase, and it seemed like they were actively trying to get him involved in this game, and they were able to do that. And then Joe Burrow actually looked mobile, actually looked healthy in this game. And this is an offensive line that there's still some new pieces there. And while the offensive line should be better, it's a whole different game when you're working with the starting quarterback in training camp versus the backup quarterback. So you still have to pick up on Joe Burrow's movements and how he moves the pocket. So I think this offensive line has room to improve so far. You still were bringing in additional pieces last offseason, and then you brought in some this offseason for that offensive line. So if they stay healthy, they start to gel and get better. My real problem with this team is at this point, it's a Joe Mixon problem where they doesn't seem like they're able to consistently run the ball. However, they were kind of able to make up with it with those short out routes to Jamar Chase, where he's picking up 6-7 yards each play, which is what they should have been doing in September. And I get you don't want to ride him, but it looks like the Bengals offense is at least back to where it should be. They blew the Cardinals out. This is the first game where Josh Dobbs threw an interception. They were able to pick him off twice. So really satisfied with the Bengals. And who they say going to beat them Bengals? Who they?
Yeah, great win for them. And Cardinals, like I said, back down to earth, but still saw some nice plays from Hollywood Brown. They were able to contain James Conner. I do think the Cardinals can build upon this game, but Bengals are back, I think.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are back, and I believe they were 1-3 coming out of September last year. Last year, they also lost to the Ravens the first time they played. They lost to the Steelers, and they lost to the Browns the first 3 matchups, and then the next 3 matchups, they beat the Steelers, beat the Browns, and beat the Ravens. So if they do that again, they'll definitely win the division. I just don't like them starting slow because I'm like, you're a team that should want to have home field advantage, especially with what we saw with some questionable calls by the refs at the end of the game, and then also with your offensive line issues. It helps when you're at home, so you'd get those calls going your way at home, and then your offensive line would be better when you can hear Joe Burrow and he can actually audible out of some plays where it's a little bit more difficult to do that on the road in Arrowhead. So disappointed that they're not striving for the 1 seed, but their division now, definitely they have their sights set 1 game back. They can definitely do that, especially Ravens offense takes a step back this week. Steelers still don't know if they can consistently score, and then the Browns find a way to just be the Cleveland Browns and then mess things up. So I think Bengals should definitely still be favorites to win the division.